The Dialogues of Plato, 428-27, 348-47 BCE, Hermocrates speaks about Atlantis. We will do our best, and have been already preparing, for on our way home, Critias told us of an ancient tradition, which I wish, Critias, that you would repeat to Socrates. I will, if Timaeus approves. I approve. Listen then, Socrates, to a tale of Solon's, who, being the friend of Dropidas my great-grandfather, told it to my grandfather Critias, and he told me. The narrative related to ancient famous actions of the Athenian people, and to one especially, which I will rehearse in honor of you and of the goddess. Critias, when he told this tale of the olden time, was 90 years old, I being not more than 10. The occasion of the rehearsal was the day of the Apaturia, called the registration of youth, at which our parents gave prizes for recitation. Some poems of Solon were recited by the boys. They had not at that time gone out of fashion, and the recital of them led someone to say, perhaps in compliment to Critias, that Solon was not only the wisest of men but also the best of poets. The old man brightened up at hearing this, and said, had Solon only had the leisure which was required to complete the famous legend which he brought with him from Egypt, he would have been as distinguished as Homer and Hesiod. And what was the subject of the poem? Said the person who made the remark. The subject was a very noble one. He described the most famous action in which the Athenian people were ever engaged. But the memory of their exploits has passed away owing to the lapse of time and the extinction of the actors. Tell us, said the other, the whole story, and where Solon heard the story. He replied, there is at the head of the Egyptian delta, where the river Nile divides, a city and district called Sais. The city was the birthplace of King Amasis, and is under the protection of the goddess Neith or Athene. The citizens have a friendly feeling towards the Athenians, believing themselves to be related to them. Hither came Solon, and was received with honor. And here he first learnt, by conversing with the Egyptian priests, how ignorant he and his countrymen were of antiquity. Perceiving this, and with the view of eliciting information from them, he told them the tales of Pharoneus and Niobe, and also of Deucalion and Pyrrha, and he endeavored to count the generations which had since passed. Thereupon an aged priest said to him, O Solon, Solon, you Hellenes are ever young, and there is no old man who is a Hellene. What do you mean? He asked. In mind, replied the priest, I mean to say that you are children. There is no opinion or tradition of knowledge among you which is white with age, and I will tell you why. Like the rest of mankind, you have suffered from convulsions of nature, which are chiefly brought about by the two great agencies of fire and water. The former is symbolized in the Hellenic tale of young Phaethon, who drove his father's horses the wrong way, and having burnt up the earth was himself burnt up by a thunderbolt. For there occurs at long intervals a derangement of the heavenly bodies, and then the earth is destroyed by fire. At such times, and when fire is the agent, those who dwell by rivers or on the seashore are safer than those who dwell upon high and dry places, who in their turn are safer when the danger is from water. Now the Nile is our savior from fire, and as there is little rain in Egypt, we are not harmed by water, whereas in other countries, when a deluge comes, the inhabitants are swept by the rivers into the sea. The memorials which your own and other nations have once had of the famous actions of mankind perish in the waters at certain periods, and the rude survivors in the mountains begin again, knowing nothing of the world before the flood. But in Egypt the traditions of our own and other lands are by us registered forever in our temples. The genealogies which you have recited to us out of your own annals, Solon, are a mere children's story. For in the first place, you remember one deluge only, and there were many of them, and you know nothing of that fairest and noblest race of which you are a seed or remnant. The memory of them was lost, because there was no written voice among you. For in the times before the great flood Athens was the greatest and best of cities and did the noblest deeds and had the best constitution of any under the face of heaven. Solon marveled, and desired to be informed of the particulars. You are welcome to hear them, said the priest, both for your own sake and for that of the city, and above all for the sake of the goddess who is the common foundress of both our cities. 9,000 years have elapsed since she founded yours, and 8,000 since she founded ours, as our annals record. Many laws exist among us which are the counterpart of yours as they were in the olden time. I will briefly describe them to you, and you shall read the account of them at your leisure in the sacred registers. In the first place, there was a caste of priests among the ancient Athenians, and another of artisans. Also, castes of shepherds, hunters, and husbandmen, and lastly of warriors, who, like the warriors of Egypt, were separated from the rest, and carried shields and spears, a custom which the goddess first taught you, and then the Asiatics, and we among Asiatics first received from her. Observe again, what care the law took in the pursuit of wisdom, searching out the deep things of the world, and applying them to the use of man. The spot of earth which the goddess chose had the best of climates, and produced the wisest men. In no other was she herself, the philosopher and warrior goddess, so likely to have votaries. And there you dwelt as became the children of the gods, excelling all men in virtue, and many famous actions are recorded of you. The most famous of them all was the overthrow of the island of Atlantis. This great island lay over against the pillars of Heracles, in extent greater than Libya and Asia put together, and was the passage to other islands and to a great ocean of which the Mediterranean Sea was only the harbor. And within the pillars the empire of Atlantis reached in Europe to Tyrrhenia and in Libya to Egypt. This mighty power was arrayed against Egypt and Hellas and all the countries bordering on the Mediterranean. Then your city did bravely, and won renown over the whole earth. For at the peril of her own existence, and when the other Hellenes had deserted her, she repelled the invader, and of her own accord gave liberty to all the nations within the pillars. A little while afterwards there were great earthquakes and floods, and your warrior race all sank into the earth. And the great island of Atlantis also disappeared in the sea. This is the explanation of the shallows which are found in that part of the Atlantic Ocean. Such was the tale, Socrates, which Critias heard from Solon. And I noticed when listening to you yesterday, how close the resemblance was between your city and citizens and the ancient Athenian state. But I would not speak at the time, because I wanted to refresh my memory. I had heard the old man when I was a child, and though I could not remember the whole of our yesterday's discourse, I was able to recall every word of this, which is branded into my mind, and I am prepared, Socrates, to rehearse to you the entire narrative. The imaginary state which you were describing may be identified with the reality of Solon, and our antediluvian ancestors may be your citizens. That is excellent, Critias, and very appropriate to a Panathena festival. The truth of the story is a great advantage. Then now let me explain to you the order of our entertainment. First, Timaeus, who is a natural philosopher, will speak of the origin of the world, going down to the creation of man, and then I shall receive the men whom he has created, and some of whom will have been educated by you, and introduce them to you as the lost Athenian citizens of whom the Egyptian record spoke. As the law of Solon prescribes, we will bring them into court and acknowledge their claims to citizenship. I see, replied Socrates, that I shall be well entertained, and do you, Timaeus, offer up a prayer and begin.